All right, hour number 3, and the deep dive today is on your Columbus Blue Jackets. 89 points a year ago, missed the playoffs by only 2. Their over-under this year is 84.5 points. So I think the man in the middle right now is going to have something to say about that. He is Don Waddell, president of Hockey Ops and the GM. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say a former defenseman himself. Good to have you on the blue line.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, so when you hear that, 84.5 points is an over-under. I know you don't want to comment on gambling terms, but is that a proper expectation? Do you find that insulting? Where is that number for you?
Well, thank you for educating me because it's the first time I've heard it. I don't usually look at the lines too closely. I would say, our expectations are much higher. Mm-hmm. And, after last season, you go back and, look at some of the games that we could have, should have won, which would have made a huge difference in the playoffs. So it's a different vibe around the team this year. The vibe is incredible. These guys, they know they left something on the table last year. We had a tough March there, tough stretch there. Fully believe in this group and certainly think we'll get the job done.
So a couple of guys we've had, Matthew Olivier, Dante Fabro, Nasher was here. They did describe more of a business-like attitude. Now, maybe that's because last year you came through, unfortunately, you came together through tragic circumstances. That emotion is not the same, but you certainly had a run to the playoffs late in the year. What do you think that experience does for this team?
Well, I've always said, I said at the start of last year, meaningful games in March are critical for your team, especially your young players. And, I talk about Fantilli. He had a tremendous year playing behind Monahan. Monahan goes down. He kept going. And I don't think you can do that without the leadership in front of you. So for our young players to play those games in March and April where it really meant something, I think was very important for, their growth in the game. And I expecting it to just continue this year.
Don, from a Blue Jackets fan perspective, which is what I am, I felt like last year was really encouraging. As you said, meaningful games in March. I didn't think in September or October a year ago that was in the cards for this team. I didn't really know what to expect. So I felt encouraged by it. We asked Matthew Olivier about it, and he said, well, I still didn't really feel good for 2 weeks after. It was more disappointment for him. I imagine maybe in your seat it's a little bit of both. Like there was growth for the organization, and you were also so close, and it could have been meaningful games in April. Which of those is more the emotion for you?
Yeah, we didn't reach our goal last year, so it's very disappointing. And I could feel it in that locker room the night of the last game, when we knew we were out, and the next few days as we did exit interviews. These players, they're proud athletes. They want to get there. So I think, certainly there was a lot of emotion with our team, but how we handle that emotion and took it on the ice, I think I can't say enough about this leadership group. Olivier fits right in there with the Boone Jenners and Monahans and Werenski. These guys, how they led this group, because they spend the most time together.
Yeah.
More than the coaches, more than anybody else. Players are together, and I think if you to a man, they were all disappointed at the end of the year. We went in the year, and I can remember. I don't pay attention. Everybody had us finishing dead last in the league,
right,
getting 50 points or whatever. And I just shrugged that off because I said, regardless, I know we went through very, very difficult, sad situation, but these guys are proud athletes, and I could see it right from game one. Johnny wasn't going away. He's always going to be on our mind, but when it came time to drop the puck and play hockey, these guys are true professionals. They're proud of what they do, and they wanted to show Johnny they could play. So I wasn't surprised how we went through the year. Just disappointed that we didn't make the playoffs.
When you've got 1,000 things on your plate, and it never comes down to just one thing that could have made the difference. But once you get past that, and you know that you're 2 points short, and you're looking to take that next step, was there one or two things that you felt like this would have made the difference? This is what we've got to get done over these 4 months.
Well, again, the young players taking a big step is a big part of it. But then, we wanted to address a few situations. We up the middle, we had all left shot centers. We weren't good on the right dot, so that's when we went out and got Charlie Coyle. Somebody could win faceoffs in the offensive and defensive zones. We felt like, when I go back, I said this, I didn't feel like this team needed to be ripped apart. I think it needed to be added to. And we lost a few guys, through free agency and that. But more importantly, the pieces we had, I think, were pieces that we desperately needed. And I think that goes a long ways. And I know as the summer was going and we were adding, when we made the trade, 4 or 5 players text me right after. Great move getting Charlie and Miles Wood. So, that makes you feel good, that the players feel good about what we're doing.
He is Don Waddell, GM of the Blue Jackets, Director of Hockey Ops. All right, some tougher ones would be, do you think you took some, I assume you took some swings to try to help your blue line in the offseason. It didn't happen. You went almost to the 11th hour with Provorov. You had to circle back. The narrative was that you did have to overpay him because you felt you needed him desperately. Did you take us through that process of trying to increase the blue line and also making sure you had something to rely on here going into this year?
Yeah, we went through, free agency. Going into free agency, we rank all the positions, and we had probably right up there, either 2 or 3 of the free agents. I was in contact daily, weekly with his agent, knowing where he was at and knowing where we were at. So, when we saw what was going on in the market, none of those top guys made it to the market. They all got re-signed by their current teams. And so we said, 8.5 sounds high. Proby's missed 3 games in 5 years during COVID. He plays every game, shows up. He's here all summer, was working out all year. I don't look at it as an overpayment. I look at it as an investment. As we move forward, he's going to be a big piece of our success on the blue line. So, to lock a guy up like that, that's got a great history, great person, great worth ethic, I think was good for us.
Did the way that Jet Greaves played at the end of the year steer you away from absolutely thinking you had to go get a higher echelon veteran goalie? The way he played, did you feel like that competition? I've heard you say Elvis won us more games than he lost, but obviously you're going to need a lot more from him as well. But where are you on your confidence in your goaltending going into this year?
Yeah, what Jet did at the end of the year, you have to think that he's got to be given that opportunity. Saying that, I always look to improve at every position. Again, another position that there wasn't a lot of free agents out there. That we talked to a few teams, of course. I said right after the start of the summer that Elvis and Greaves got to be given a chance to take this team to the next step. Now we went out and added Ivan here recently, which we think you're going to need 3 or 4 goalies during the year. It's just that's a position that seems to always get injured or whatever. So not playing well. I actually feel much better today about our goaltending. We've been through 3 exhibition games, and our bright spot's been our goalies.
It has.
The goalies have been really good. So I feel so much better today than I said all summer. I had nightmares about the goaltending because I was always worried about it, because if you don't have goaltending, I don't care how good you are, you're not going to win games. And as we sit here today and get ready for the season, I think we're in a pretty good spot.
When you go into these exhibition games in this preseason schedule, obviously we're all looking at the goalies. In your seat, what is the thing that you're looking for? What is it that you hope the Blue Jackets get accomplished in a game like where that the end result and the scoreboard doesn't matter as much as maybe the process?
Yeah, it's like we met this morning. What I'd like to see is the projection of how these players have been, the young players over the last few years, because at some point we got some guys that are going to crack this lineup. Del Bell and Hunt, he's close right now. So you want to make sure that, because you go into the summer and you always think, okay, I need this position, I need that position, but then you forget about what you have.
Yeah.
And so right now, this whole camp was about, these guys, are they ready to take that next step, whether it's third in the year or next year? So watching those guys, obviously, is number one. Watching our prospects we just drafted. I don't get too caught up in the score, as you said. And then the goaltending. That's the biggest thing. And Ivan played 2 periods last night. It was one of the better goalie performances I've seen in a while. But obviously, the other night, Jet was outstanding and Elvis was fine. So we'll just take it by see what happens tonight.
Don, when you look at a season, in your mind, do you break it down into the first 20 games? How do you assess a season without knowing the results of what you've got, obviously?
Yeah, that's a good question, because, coaches' mindset is one game at a time. It has to be. Win tonight, worry about tomorrow. I look at probably more of a 10-game, depending on how our schedule might be 11 or 12, depending on if we're on the road and that. Because you want to make sure you see progress. You might play the first night, play really well and win, and have a bad night the second night and lose. So you want to make sure, though, over a stretch, have you made at game 10 versus game 1, are we a better hockey team? And try to do it that way. And there's no science to it. You just try to figure which guys are going to give you the most on it every given night. And the other thing with that is the back-to-back games last year, we weren't very good. We were 2-12, I think. So we put a big emphasis on that this year and in training camp. We'll see how that works for us this year.
You still got money to spend, right?
Lots of money to spend, just no players to spend it.
I think Anthony was asking for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, fork over a little here. Well done, my man. I appreciate it. Some of those were a little tougher probably to answer than others, because I think the narrative around this team is if you get a little better defensively and you get some above-average goaltending, power play increases a little bit, penalty kill increases a little bit. Like if those you get into in the top half of this league in those categories, now everybody else that played great last year has to keep doing that. They have to, some of these career moves with Olivier and Z. Obviously, you expect him to be great again, but Fantilli and Marchi and those guys have to keep. But if all of that comes together and then you get a little bit of where you were so deficient, then I think you're above the line and you're probably playing postseason hockey.
Well, I always say the two things you can work on goals against defensively. I said last year at my opening press conference, I didn't know where the goals were going to come from. Well, obviously, that wasn't the issue.
Yeah,
we've really focused on defensively this year, and the penalty kill. I think we're 27th or something in the league. That just can't be. We're better than that. Lundstrom, the kid, we didn't mention him, that we added from Anaheim. He's going to really help in that department. He's been really good in the exhibition games. More of a defensive forward, but very responsible forward. So we can clean up those two areas, we're going to be fine.
The Big Don with us. Always good to have you, man. Candid answers. We appreciate it, and good luck this season.
No, I appreciate being on your show, guys.
Thanks. 4 games and 4 nights. Then they get a little bit of a break. Good. Maybe it's good it is preseason. We'll come back. Micah Parsons has a prediction for his return to Dallas. You'll hear it next. Rothman and Ice on the Fan.
The only workplace in